My name is Rabecca. And if you had told me 10 years ago that one day I'd be standing in the middle of a crowded family gathering, watching my sister slap my little girl across the face while everyone laughed, I would have thought you were describing someone else's nightmare. But it happened to me. And the worst part wasn't even the slap. It was the silence that followed. The kind that sinks deep into your bones, reminding you that the people you trusted the most were never really on your side. To tell this story properly, I need to start from the beginning. Because revenge, at least in my life, didn't come from hatred. It came from hurt. From years of being belittled, ignored, and made to feel small by the very people who were supposed to lift me up. I grew up as the second daughter in a middle-class family in a small suburban town. My parents were strict, traditional, and deeply concerned about appearances. My older sister Clara was the golden child. Everyone adored her, or at least pretended to. She was the one with perfect grades, perfect posture, and perfect smiles. My mother used to introduce her as our pride and joy, and then she'd turn to me and say, "And this is Rabecca, our quiet one," still figuring herself out. I don't think she ever realized how much that small introduction hurt. It made me feel like a footnote in my own family. Growing up, Clara and I were opposites. She was loud, confident, always in control. I was more thoughtful, slower to speak, maybe a little shy. Where she demanded attention, I preferred to observe. Where she argued, I listened. That difference, what should have made us balanced, turned into a weapon she used against me. Clara learned early how to charm our parents. She'd exaggerate her achievements and make sure I was there to hear it. If she got an A, she'd say, "I guess not everyone's cut out for excellence." When I made a mistake, even a small one, she'd laugh. Typical Rabecca. My parents never corrected her. If anything, they joined in with indulgent smiles, as though this constant humiliation was some kind of harmless sibling rivalry. By the time I was 18, I had learned to swallow my pride. I went to college on a scholarship, something my parents barely acknowledged. Clara got a car for graduating high school. I got a suitcase to take with me to campus. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd find my peace and independence. And for a while I did. I built a quiet life away from them, focusing on my studies, keeping contact polite and minimal. But life has a way of circling back. I met Daniel in my second year of college. He was gentle, funny in a subtle way, and didn't talk over me the way most people did. I didn't fall in love fast. I fell in love deeply, in slow, careful steps. He saw things in me that I had long stopped believing were there. Patience, strength, kindness. We got married after graduation, and a few years later, our daughter Lily was born. For the first time, I felt whole. My world wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Lily was bright and curious, the kind of child who laughed loudly and asked endless questions about everything. Daniel used to joke that she was a tiny scientist with a megaphone. She filled every corner of our house with laughter and chaos, the kind I never had growing up. I didn't realize how fragile that peace was until Clara reappeared in my life. It started with a phone call. She said she wanted to reconnect, that we were older and wiser now. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. She had married well, a businessman, wealthier than most in our family. She dressed in elegant clothes, always carried herself like she was posing for invisible cameras. But beneath her polished surface, I could still sense that sharp edge, the one that always cut when I got too close. Still, I tried. I wanted Lily to have a family, to know her cousins and grandparents. Daniel encouraged me, saying, "Maybe people change." I wanted to believe that too. The first few gatherings went smoothly. Clara acted sweet, complimenting my cooking, pretending to adore Lily. My parents seemed delighted to have both their daughters under one roof again. But cracks appeared quickly. Small remarks, little jabs wrapped in smiles. "Lily's so loud," Clara would say, just like her mom used to be when she didn't know her place. My mother would laugh lightly, as if it were a fond memory. I bit my tongue. Over and over, for Lily's sake. I kept telling myself not to ruin family peace, but every gathering left me more drained, more resentful. And then came the day everything broke. It was my father's birthday. He was turning 70, and Clara had offered to host a big family dinner at her house. She insisted on doing everything first class. I agreed to help set up early, bringing Lily along because Daniel was away on a short business trip. Clara's house looked like a magazine spread: polished marble floors, chandeliers, expensive furniture that seemed too fragile to sit on. The guests started arriving in the evening: relatives, family friends, even a few neighbors. Everyone was dressed formally. I tried to keep Lily close to me, but she was 6, curious and excited, running around exploring everything new. I reminded her to stay calm, but her joy was hard to contain. She was laughing with one of her cousins when I heard Clara's voice cut through the noise. "Lily!" she snapped, loud enough for everyone to stop talking. The room went quiet. I froze. Lily turned around, startled. Before I could move toward her, Clara walked up, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, and without hesitation, she slapped her. The sound echoed. The shock paralyzed me for a second. Lily's eyes filled with tears, her small hand instinctively reaching toward her cheek. My heart shattered. I rushed to her, pulling her close, my hands trembling. "Clara, what on earth?" She raised her hand dismissively. "Someone had to teach her manners," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. Then, as if the slap wasn't enough, she added with a smirk, "Like mother, like daughter. Both are useless." And then she laughed, loudly. The laughter spread. My mother chuckled behind her hand. My father smirked and muttered, "Well, she needed to learn some shame." The guests looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. It was as if the air had frozen in place. I felt my whole body burning, anger, humiliation, disbelief all crashing together. My voice wouldn't come out. I just held Lily tighter as tears rolled down her cheeks. For a moment I thought of screaming, of storming out, of breaking something, but then I saw it. On the table near the cake, a small wireless microphone. Clara had set up the sound system earlier for speeches. It was still on. Every word she said, every cruel comment, it had been picked up by the speakers, echoing faintly across the backyard, where more guests were mingling. And somewhere inside me, beneath the ache and shame, something cold and steady began to form. I didn't say anything that night. I comforted Lily, made an excuse, and left early. But I didn't cry until I got home. When I finally did, it wasn't the kind of crying that fades with time. It was the kind that clears space, like the quiet before a storm. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring at nothing for a long time. Lily was still sleeping, her cheek faintly red. I replayed every detail of that night in my mind. The laughter, the slap, the look on my parents' faces. And then I remembered the microphone. I called one of the family friends who helped with the event, pretending I needed photos and audio for my father's birthday video. He said, "Sure, I'll send you the raw footage. The mic feed is all there." When I opened the file, I heard it clearly. Clara's voice, my father's smirk, the laughter. All of it, recorded perfectly. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything started to change. For years, I had been silent. I had endured the small humiliations, the cutting words, the false smiles. But when Clara slapped my daughter, she didn't just hurt Lily. She reopened every wound she'd ever given me. And this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. I didn't want to explode. I wanted to plan, slowly, calmly, and completely. Because revenge, when done right, isn't loud. It's quiet, methodical, like healing, except it leaves the scars where they belong, and mine was only just beginning. The next few days after that night felt like I was moving underwater. Everything around me looked normal. The dishes still needed washing, Lily still needed breakfast. Life still asked me to keep functioning. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't the same woman who walked into that party with polite smiles and swallowed words. When I dropped Lily off at school that Monday morning, she was quieter than usual. Normally, she'd chatter about her classmates or what she wanted in her lunchbox. But that morning, she just held my hand tighter. I knelt down before she went inside and touched her cheek, still faintly bruised from the slap. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "you didn't do anything wrong. You were just being yourself." She nodded, but her eyes told me she didn't fully believe it. Kids are honest that way. They don't pretend when they're hurt. Watching her walk through the school gate broke something inside me all over again. I sat in the car for a long time after that, my hands gripping the steering wheel, tears forming, but refusing to fall. There's a kind of anger that doesn't roar. It just sits quietly, steady and sharp. That's what I felt. When I got home, I played the recording again. The audio was crystal clear. I could hear Lily's laughter, then Clara's cutting voice, the slap, and afterward, the sound of people laughing like it was a scene from some twisted comedy. Every time I heard it, the same cold determination settled deeper into my chest. I didn't want revenge for the sake of cruelty. I wanted truth. I wanted everyone to see what I had seen my whole life. The way my sister and parents disguised humiliation as humor. The way they made cruelty sound like teaching manners. But I knew if I just sent the recording around or shouted it on social media, they would twist it, call me dramatic, say I was overreacting. That's what they always did. They thrived on manipulation, on making me doubt myself. So I decided to be patient. For the first time in my life, I wanted to make a plan that was precise and calm. I started by observing. I stayed silent in the family group chat. I didn't call or text anyone. A few relatives messaged asking why I'd left the party early. I simply said Lily wasn't feeling well. It was believable. They accepted it. A week passed. Then Clara called. "Rabecca," she said in that overly sweet tone she used when she wanted to sound innocent. "You disappeared so suddenly that night." "Everything okay?" I could almost hear her smirk through the phone. "Yes," I said evenly. "Lily was tired." "Oh, kids are like that," she said, laughing. "I hope you didn't take that little moment too seriously. You know how she was being loud. I just lost my temper for a second." I could feel my pulse rising. I took a breath before replying. "Of course," I said. "Let's just forget it." "Good," she said. "I knew you'd understand. We're family, after all." Family. That word tasted bitter in my mouth. When the call ended, I sat in silence for a while. Then I replayed the call in my mind, her casual tone, the way she brushed off what she did to a 6-year-old like it was nothing. That conversation sealed my resolve. I didn't want to confront her yet. Not with words. I wanted the truth to reach everyone naturally, without me ever having to raise my voice. And fate gave me the perfect opportunity. My father's birthday party had been recorded by a professional videographer, someone Clara had hired. She had mentioned earlier that she wanted to make a family highlights video to share online. I remembered him walking around with his camera that night, recording everything, speeches, laughter, even candid moments. I reached out to him a few days later, pretending I was helping Clara finalize the video. He was friendly and agreed to send me a copy of the unedited footage, saying, "There's a ton of stuff here, around 2 hours." When I opened it, my heart pounded. I scrolled through until I reached the part, the moment. There it was, captured from a distance, Lily laughing with her cousin, Clara striding forward, and then the slap. The camera didn't catch every face clearly, but the sound was synced perfectly with the microphone feed. The entire room's reaction was recorded. My father's smirk, my mother's half-suppressed laugh. It wasn't just audio anymore. It was visible truth, but I still waited. I didn't want to release it in anger. I wanted it to mean something. In the meantime, I focused on Lily. We spent quiet evenings together, painting, reading, taking walks. I wanted her to see that her worth didn't depend on how others treated her. I told her stories about strong people who stood up without shouting. She didn't need to know yet that one of those people would soon be her mother. Weeks turned into a month. My parents called occasionally, mostly to gossip about relatives, or to tell me how lovely Clara's new home looked after renovation. They never once mentioned what happened at that party. In their world, silence was equivalent to forgiveness, but not this time. Then came the day Clara invited everyone again. A family dinner to celebrate her husband's promotion. I almost declined, but then I realized this could be the perfect stage. I accepted the invitation. When I arrived with Lily, everything felt eerily similar to my father's birthday. The polished tableware, the laughter, the smell of expensive food. Clara greeted me warmly, hugging me as if we were best friends. "I'm so glad you came," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I smiled politely. Of course, wouldn't miss it. During dinner, I noticed something. Clara had once again set up her home's speakers and microphones. She loved doing that, loved the sound of her own voice filling the room. "We'll do some speeches later," she announced. "You know how I love recording family moments." The irony almost made me laugh. As the evening went on, she bragged about her husband's success, about her perfect kids, about how much she cared for our parents. Everyone listened, nodding, sipping their wine. Then she turned to me. "And Rabecca," she said sweetly, "how's life going? Still teaching? Still in that small house?" I met her eyes and smiled. "Still the same. But you know, sometimes staying small means you can see things clearly." She blinked, confused for a moment, then laughed. "Always the philosopher." I said nothing more. I was waiting. After dinner, when people started moving toward the living room for coffee and dessert, Clara stood up to play one of her family montage videos. She loved showing off her editing skills. The screen flickered to life. Photos of birthdays, anniversaries, smiling faces. Everyone clapped. When it ended, she asked, "Who wants to see the raw footage from Dad's birthday? It's so funny. There are some hilarious bloopers." My heart skipped. She didn't know I already had a copy, but her husband had probably loaded the wrong file, because when the video started playing, I immediately recognized the scene. Lily's laughter filled the room. Then, Clara's sharp voice. The slap. Her words, like mother, like daughter, both are useless. The room froze. The laughter on the screen was deafening in that sudden silence. My mother's giggle, my father's cruel smirk, all echoing through the speakers. Clara's face turned white. She rushed toward the TV, fumbling with the remote. "Wait, that's not," she stammered. But it was too late. The guests had seen it. Her friends, her husband's colleagues, our relatives, everyone. No one said a word. You could feel the weight of judgment in the air. My father stood up slowly, looking around as if searching for an excuse. My mother whispered something to him, but even she looked embarrassed. Clara finally managed to stop the video, her hands trembling. "Someone must have edited that," she said weakly. I looked at her calmly. "No one edited anything, Clara. That's what happened. I was there, remember? The silence that followed was heavier than the slap itself." I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I simply picked up my bag, held Lily's hand, and said softly, "I think it's time we went home." No one stopped us. Not a single person spoke. In the car, Lily asked, "Mom, why was everyone so quiet?" I smiled gently. Because sometimes the truth speaks loud enough on its own. That night, as I tucked her into bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on pretending everything is fine, but the kind that comes from knowing you finally stood up for yourself in your own way. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, calls, family group chats filled with chaos. Some relatives apologized privately, saying they had no idea. Others blamed Clara or my parents or each other. I didn't respond to any of them. Clara called too. Once, twice, then 5 times. I didn't answer. Eventually, she texted, "You ruined my reputation. Are you happy now?" I stared at the message for a long moment before replying, "No, Clara, I just stopped letting you ruin mine." After that, I blocked her number. For weeks, my parents tried to reach me, leaving voicemails full of half-hearted apologies. "You know we didn't mean it that way," my mother said once. Families say things. But I was done being their quiet punching bag. I didn't shout. I just stopped showing up. Silence can be the loudest revenge of all. I started focusing entirely on Lily and myself. I threw myself into my work again, started a small side business teaching art classes to kids. Lily joined me sometimes, painting beside me. Watching her laugh again, freely without fear, was the real victory. Months passed, and the noise from that night faded, replaced by something softer. Dignity. I didn't destroy anyone. I just let them face what they'd created. And for the first time, I didn't feel small anymore. I felt steady, the calm kind of strong. The silence after that night was heavier than I expected. It was as though a storm had passed through our family, and everyone was left standing in the wreckage, pretending nothing had been broken. Except everything had been broken. The image, the illusion, the unspoken hierarchy that always put Clara above everyone else. For a few days, my phone didn't stop buzzing. At first, it was the family group chat, a flood of messages, excuses, and weak attempts to smooth things over. Then came the calls. My parents, a few cousins, even Clara's husband. I didn't answer most of them. I needed space to breathe. But I listened to one voicemail from my father. His voice was low, uncharacteristically quiet. "Rebecca," he said, "your sister is very upset. You should have come to us directly instead of embarrassing the family like that. You've made things harder for everyone." He didn't apologize for what he said that night. Not once. It confirmed what I already knew. My parents cared more about appearances than people. They didn't see what had been done to me or to Lily as wrong. They only saw it as shameful because others had witnessed it. So I stopped expecting apologies. Clara, on the other hand, wasn't quiet for long. A few days later, she sent me a long message, the kind that looks like remorse at first glance, but is really an accusation wrapped in self-pity. "You've ruined everything," she wrote. "People are talking about me. You don't understand how hard I've worked to build my reputation. That video was private. You had no right to let it be shown." I read her words slowly, realizing she still didn't understand the core of it. She didn't regret slapping my daughter or calling us names. She only regretted being caught. I didn't reply. Silence, once a prison for me, had now become my weapon. Weeks passed, and little by little the gossip spread. Families talked, they always do. Some sided with me quietly, saying Clara had gone too far. Others whispered that I must have set her up. It didn't matter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to control the narrative. The truth was out there, and I didn't have to defend it. One afternoon, I ran into one of Clara's old friends at the grocery store. She looked hesitant, unsure whether to approach me, but eventually said, "I saw that video from the party. I can't believe she did that." I smiled faintly. "Believe it," she nodded, lowering her voice. "She's been keeping a low profile since then. Apparently some of her husband's colleagues saw it too. He wasn't happy." I didn't ask for details, but I could imagine the tension. Clara's husband, Mark, was a man obsessed with image, polite in public, distant in private. Their marriage had always looked polished from the outside, but I'd sensed the cracks. He valued status, and Clara was his perfect accessory, until she became a public embarrassment. It's strange how life turns. For years I had been the one made to feel small, unwanted, like the imperfect sister. Now the one who had humiliated me in front of others was the one being whispered about. But I didn't celebrate it. I wasn't interested in watching her fall apart. I had no joy in her misery. My revenge wasn't about destruction, it was about truth. And the truth had finally done what words never could. Still, I couldn't help but feel a kind of sadness. Families aren't supposed to end this way. I had spent so many years hoping for love, for recognition, for that impossible approval. But standing in the quiet of my own kitchen, watching Lily draw at the table, I realized something. Maybe I had been looking for acceptance from the wrong people all along. One evening, about a month later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Clara stood there. No warning, no message beforehand. She looked different. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled like usual, and her eyes looked tired, almost hollow. "Can we talk?" she asked. For a moment, I wanted to shut the door, but Lily was in the next room, and I didn't want to make a scene. So I stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. We sat across from each other at the table. She didn't say anything for a while, just stared at her hands. Finally, she spoke. "You know, everything's falling apart," she said quietly. "Mark moved out last week. He says he needs space. My reputation is ruined. People don't look at me the same anymore." I listened silently. Then she looked up, her eyes searching mine. "Why did you do that, Rabecca? You could have come to me. You could have talked to me privately." I took a deep breath. "You slapped my daughter in front of a room full of people and called her useless. And you laughed. You made her feel like she was nothing. That's not something to discuss privately. That's something the world needed to see." She looked away, her jaw tightening. "You've always hated me," she muttered. "No," I said calmly. "I just stopped pretending that I didn't see who you really are." She didn't have an answer to that. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. After a while, she stood up. "I came here to say sorry," she said finally. "Not because I want to, but because my therapist said I should." It was such a Clara thing to say. Even her apology was transactional. I nodded slowly. "If that helps you, fine. But I'm not interested in pretending everything's fine. What's done is done," she sighed, frustrated. "You think you're better than us now?" I looked at her, steady and unblinking. "No, Clara. I just learned to stop being afraid of you." That was the end of it. She left without another word. When the door closed, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Not triumph, not sadness. Just peace. Like the final page of a long, painful chapter. After that, months went by without contact. My parents stopped calling too, perhaps out of embarrassment or loyalty to Clara. At first, the silence felt heavy, but over time it started to feel like freedom. My home became my safe space again, quiet, warm, filled only with the laughter of my daughter. Lily recovered faster than I expected. Children are resilient, but sometimes at night she'd ask, "Mom, why doesn't Grandma visit anymore?" I'd smile softly and say, "Because not everyone knows how to be kind, sweetheart. And that's okay. We just have to keep being kind ourselves." She seemed to understand, in her own way. Around that time, something unexpected happened. I was invited to a local community event, an art fair organized by parents and teachers. They wanted me to lead a workshop for kids. I hesitated at first, unsure if I was ready to step out again, but Daniel encouraged me. "You've been hiding from the world long enough," he said. "It's time to show them who you are, not who they said you were." He was right. So I agreed. And that day, standing in front of a group of children, watching them paint freely and joyfully, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't the scared, quiet daughter anymore. I was a woman who had found her voice, even if that voice was soft. After the workshop, one of the mothers approached me. "You're amazing with kids," she said. "You should consider opening your own art studio." The idea stuck with me. Over the next few months, I started working on it. I rented a small space downtown, bright and cozy, filled with color and light. I called it the Little Canvas. It became a space where children could be loud, messy, curious, everything Lily had been scolded for being. The studio became my new world. Parents appreciated the calm atmosphere, the gentle way I taught. Lily came with me after school, helping organize brushes and greeting other kids. Seeing her there, confident and happy, felt like the ultimate closure. One day, while cleaning up after a session, I found Lily sitting quietly, sketching something. "What are you drawing?" I asked. She showed me a picture, a small girl standing in the rain with an umbrella. Behind her were faint outlines of people laughing, but the girl looked calm, smiling under her own little shelter. "She's not sad anymore," Lily said. "She found her happy place." I couldn't speak for a moment. I just hugged her tightly, because that drawing wasn't just about her, it was about us. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. There were still hard days, lonely moments, old wounds that sometimes ached. But I learned something powerful. Revenge doesn't always have to destroy. Sometimes it's about reclaiming your peace and letting the people who hurt you live with the truth. And that's what I did. Months later, I heard from a distant relative that Clara had moved to another city. Her marriage officially ended. She was apparently working part-time, struggling to adjust. I didn't feel joy or pity, just distance. She had built her world on control, on the image of perfection. The truth cracked that image open. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. As for my parents, they eventually sent a letter. Handwritten, shaky words, trying to apologize, saying they didn't realize how bad things had gotten. I didn't reply, but I didn't tear it up either. I kept it in a drawer. A reminder that sometimes people regret things only after losing access to you. That was enough for me. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't defined by their opinions or Clara's cruelty. I was defined by my own choices, calm, deliberate, and true. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of revenge there is. I woke up the next morning with a strange kind of peace in my chest. The kind that comes after you've finally stopped crying, after you've accepted that something has ended. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel helpless. I felt steady. My sister, my parents, all of them had taught me that staying quiet meant weakness, but they were wrong. Silence can be strength, the kind that grows deep roots before anyone realizes how solid it's become. After the microphone incident, I replayed the recording several times. Every cruel word, every laugh. The moment my father said Emma needed to learn some shame, I didn't cry this time. I just listened, carefully, like someone studying the final scene of a long, painful play. Their words were my truth now, and truth was the only weapon I needed. I didn't rush into any confrontation. I wanted to be deliberate. I reminded myself, real revenge doesn't come from anger. It comes from calm. So I started small, with myself. I began cleaning the house, organizing Emma's things, and even cooking again. The house started to feel like a safe space, not a reminder of what I'd lost. Emma's laughter slowly returned, soft at first, like a hesitant bird. We'd dance in the living room sometimes, her little feet hopping on the floor, her giggle echoing through the space. That sound was my anchor, proof that life was still beautiful, despite everything. Meanwhile, Julia went on with her life like nothing had happened. She posted family photos, captioned with things like, "Grateful for my amazing parents." My parents commented with hearts and smile emojis. It was almost theatrical, their perfect family act. But that's what made it all easier, because when people try so hard to hide who they are, truth eventually becomes their undoing. A few weeks later, I received a message from my mother. Family dinner next Saturday. Everyone's coming. It was their annual gathering, an event they used to brag about, the kind that was all about appearances. I thought about ignoring it, but then something inside me said, "No, go." In the days before the dinner, I started reconnecting with old relatives, cousins, an aunt who used to adore me before my sister poisoned her opinion. I didn't bring up the slap or the microphone. I just talked to them like before, slowly, naturally. I wanted them to remember who I really was, not the version my parents had built. The soft, emotional one who can't handle criticism. When Saturday came, I dressed simply. A black dress, a small silver pendant, hair tied neatly. I didn't want to look dramatic. I wanted to look composed. Emma wore a light pink dress and held my hand as we walked in. The moment we entered, I could feel the atmosphere. My sister's laughter filled the room. My father was surrounded by relatives, his usual confident self. My mother hovered around, making sure everyone noticed how happy the family was. When she saw me, she gave that polite, empty smile and said, "You look fine." Dinner was loud, cheerful, fake. My father talked about family unity, and my sister joked about being the one who keeps everyone together. I stayed quiet, smiled when needed, but my heart was steady. I knew what was coming. After dinner, when everyone gathered in the living room, my father tapped the microphone. the same one they used for speeches every year. "Before we end," he said proudly, "I'd like to make a toast to family, through good times and bad." I raised my hand slightly. "Dad, before you do, can I play something? It's a short recording from Emma's school event. You'll like it." He looked surprised but nodded. "Of course." I connected my phone to the speaker. The room fell silent. The recording started, and within seconds, the air changed. Julia's voice came through first. "Like mother, like daughter, both are useless." Then my father's. "Well, she needed to learn some shame." And then the laughter. Their laughter. The entire room froze. My mother's face drained of color. My father's hand tightened on the glass he was holding. Julia looked around, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. The same people who had once applauded their perfect family now sat in stunned silence. When the recording ended, I waited. I didn't speak immediately. The silence was louder than anything I could have said. Then calmly I said, "That was recorded the day my daughter was slapped. I didn't plan to record it. It was just an accident. But I thought maybe tonight, you all could hear what family sounds like when no one's pretending." You could feel the tension ripple through the room. My aunt looked away. My cousin stared at me with tears in her eyes. My father was the first to speak. His voice was low but trembling. "Rabecca, you've taken this out of context." I looked him straight in the eye. "It's not out of context, Dad. It's just finally out in the open." Julia suddenly stood up, face flushed. "You're unbelievable. You always want to be the victim. You've embarrassed this family." I didn't move. "Julia, you embarrassed yourself the day you hit a child." She stormed out, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. My mother followed after her, whispering something I didn't care to hear. My father stayed behind, too stunned to speak. I didn't wait for anyone to recover. I simply took Emma's hand and said quietly, "Come on, sweetheart. We're going home." As we walked out, I heard whispers starting, soft at first, then louder. Some were angry, others sympathetic. But I didn't turn back. For the first time, I didn't owe them an explanation. In the days that followed, the family chat exploded. My father called me repeatedly, saying I had destroyed the family name. My mother sent voice notes about forgiveness, about keeping things private. I listened once, then deleted them. I didn't feel joy exactly. I felt peace, like balance had finally returned. Julia went silent online for weeks. Later, I heard she was having problems at work. Apparently, one of our cousins had shared the clip privately, and somehow it had reached her colleagues. I hadn't intended for that to happen, but I didn't stop it either. Actions have ripples, and sometimes people need to face theirs. Meanwhile, Emma started smiling more. She began singing again at school events, no longer scared of being too noisy. Watching her heal was my real victory. Months later, I ran into Julia at a mutual friend's event. She avoided me for most of the night. But as she was leaving, she came over quietly. Her eyes were red. She said, "I shouldn't have done that to Emma." I looked at her, calmly. "You're right. You shouldn't have." She waited, like she wanted me to say it was okay. I didn't. Some things don't need words, only distance. Later that night, Emma asked me, "Mom, are you still mad at Aunt Julia?" I smiled. "No, honey. I'm not mad. I just remember." And she nodded like she understood something far beyond her years. These days, our life is quieter, simpler. We don't visit often. My parents still pretend nothing happened, but that doesn't matter. I don't need their apology anymore. I have my peace. Sometimes when I think back to that awful moment, Julia's hand, Emma's tears, my parents' laughter, I realize that was the turning point. They thought they humiliated me. What they really did was free me. Revenge, I've learned, doesn't have to be loud or cruel. It can be calm. It can be patient. It can come in the form of truth, played softly through a speaker, while the people who caused your pain finally listen to themselves. If you're hearing this story and it reminds you of your own pain, remember, silence isn't surrender. It's strength waiting for the right moment. Wait for your peace. Let truth do the rest. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to my Calm Revenge, where every story reminds you that even the quietest voices can deliver the loudest justice.